First thing you see when you look at a game is usually the box art, or the art on the cartridge or CD. That sin of never judging a book by its cover kicks in and becomes the reason if you play or don't play. It's also important in the way it kind of shapes the game, or at least how you want people to think of it. Something early graphics couldn't quite pull off. Some look like Castlevania, which is good, and some look like Mega Man, which is cruelly awful. But one franchise that allowed the art to define them, as much as the game defined the art itself. Or am I saying that right? Well, anyway, it's the Legend of Zelda. Due to the graphical limitations of 1986, the instruction manual had illustrations that help you understand for what type of fantasy they're trying to tell. It's amusing looking back on Link, seeing him as a cute, pudgy looking fella, but with the monsters still looking like the usual rogue gallery of the Dungeons and Dragons creatures. Years later we got this, kind of updating the look from dwarf to child Link. On a side note, I did find this in a magazine before the release of Legend of Zelda. Apparently this was drawn by Miyamoto himself. With the sequel, Link sort of grew up a bit. We see this in a visual representation of the prologue of Zelda 2. Just like the first game, there's a fantastic use of color. It's charming, but at the same time making you realize what you have to man up for. With Link to the Past, Link's nose got a lot smaller, and he got a lot more agile, as we see with a collection of illustrations showing the actions and movements Link can do. You can see more attention to detail with the proportions of his body. We see this style with Link's Awakening, including drawings of characters who have such character to them. Then a turning happened in the late 90s with Ocarina, aiming for a lot more realistic and serious tone. And I do mean serious. If you look at Link's movements, you can see that stern face in all of them. But there's more than that. There's a lot of feeling to some of these pictures. And kudos to the artists for putting a lot of beauty and mysticism to some of these pictures. There's also a stronger attempt at making the creatures seem very human. And of course, fitting to what type of game we got, some of them that I guess were concept art show how big and epic the game really is. You can just look at an image like this and you'll have the Temple of Time theme going on in your head. The bosses especially look amazing. Again, there's so much detail to it. I do have to bring up the lack of any art for the Dead Hand. Maybe it was kept secret, so when you actually do run into the thing, it would have been a big, frightening surprise. It worked. I'm kind of hoping someone in the comments would say, well, they did draw it, but it was too gruesome and disturbing to be shown to the public, and they put it in the Nintendo vault and... Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I'll move on. This was at a time where I started to see how good video game art could really be. Its follow-up, Majora's Mask, took a lot of the properties from Ocarina, but the style of the illustrations are definitely very different. Link has a more of a comic book look to him with the shade and colors. He's not as three-dimensionally well-rounded as his counterparts. None of the characters do. They look more peculiar, but the colors make them really stand out. Which is a merit for the game because the use of color is really well done with Majora's Mask. Boy, I sure didn't realize how badass these boys are meant to be. Then with the Game Boy games, Ages and Seasons, we go back to a more cuter, calmer style. And that of course brings us to Wind Waker, with the embarrassing cop-out of Toon Link. Not using the GameCube's full potential, they go for a cartoonish, minimal design for Link. You could say it gives the green guy more expressions, but again with that minimalism there's no impact from these faces. Remember in Ocarina when young Link was scared of Ganon? With the limited technology they did a good job, but with Toon Link it just looks like he's even more dead inside. And unfortunately with the future games they use the Toon Link illustration. We did get these 6 stained glass windows though. Then enough time passed to give us Twilight Princess. But the con is, they're a lot more dark and dull looking, but similar to the Ocarina design. He's got kind of a weird swish to him. You know, it is called Twilight Princess, so I guess it makes sense for them to look more darker. I'm not sure if this is just me, but the creatures have such bizarre bodies, but their faces look very human, while the human-looking characters have very bizarre faces, but normal-looking human bodies. The color would eventually be brought back with Skyward Sword, along with some of the best artwork from the series. This is really impressive stuff. We also see a lot of this with Breath of the Wild, looking like watercolored paintings, showing off the background distance and giving off movement. It's not clear who's responsible for these masterpieces that at a time no one would look twice at. I hope I can give you the best respects from this video. So thank you for making Zelda more interesting to look at.